All right, so about a year ago, I made a video on my Samson and the story of how I got a bike from Japan. In that video, I said I was gonna make a Calavinka story video, and here I am. A year later, it's supposed to be a week later, but I'm gonna tell the story now and talk about how I got my Calavinka, why I chose it, a bit about the bike, my experience with ordering it, and what it's like to ride a Calavinka custom bike that's made for me. All right, so why did I get a Calavinka? It actually wasn't my first choice. It turned out to be the best choice, but at the time, I did a lot of research to understand what builder I wanted to use. But there was some criteria that I had. I wanted it to be very unique. At the time, I think when the fixie scene happened, NJS became something. Panasonic, Anchor, and Bridgestone were like the big ones. Everybody had those ones you see, and that's probably because there's a high number of them being made, and they're not as sought after as like Calavinka, who makes like 75 a year. So there was 3 problems that happened when I was looking for a bike. So the first one that I went to was actually Nagasawa. I was like, okay, this one's really cool. It has a cool logo, it has the heritage behind it. So I contacted him, and they don't do anything custom. There's no oversized tubing. I wanted 28.6. They only had 25.4, and you couldn't have a different kind of fork. So I was like, why am I going to spend all this money for custom when it's actually just off the shelf? It didn't make sense. So I said no to that. The second problem was from Level, and that was, he said I physically had to be in Japan for the fitting. And that probably makes sense if I make the bike and then I'm like, it's not the right size, I fitted myself incorrectly, or maybe he was going to charge for the fitting itself or to have that experience. And all of these builders have lines out the door to build them, have frames built, so they can choose what they want to take in. And then the third one, the dude flat out said no to me. He wouldn't build me a bike at all. This was Presto. They're really cool bikes. It's less known, and again, that was going for the unique aspect of it. You see them on NJS Export, but they're pretty rare. So I contacted him through Facebook Messenger, and he said that there was a 6-month wait time. I was like, okay, no problem. 6 months is fine. But it turns out he still said no, and he ghosted me after that. So, okay, no to Presto. And then I kind of landed back on Calavinka. It was in the list of things that I wanted, or builders that I was interested in. And so I contacted him, and he said yes. And he said, several times, okay, are you sure you're willing to wait 6, 7, 8 months, maybe even 9 months for this frame? Are you sure? And I'm like, okay, yes. And the reason why I was okay with that is because at the time I was living in Thailand for work, and I knew I was going back to America in 9 months. So the idea was to have him make it for me, ship it to America, so when I move back, it's there waiting for me. All right, let's talk about the bike itself and some of the things that I chose for the frame. Number 1, tubing. So I went with Kasai 8630. This was a lighter tubing. It was thinner than other ones, so it was maybe going to be not as robust, or it wouldn't last as long, but it would be snappier and lighter, and I was super interested in that. It was my first bike. I wanted to be as light and stiff as possible. Looking back, I think this ride's incredible. It rides better than the Samson, but I'm really cautious with it when I ride it because I know that the tubing is so thin. And maybe that's mental, and it's probably good for me to baby the bike anyway. I baby most of my bikes. I don't baby the Chinelli, but I kind of baby that too. To an extent, but the Samson is actually Columbus Zona, which is known to be durable, light enough, and stiff enough. So I think I don't baby the Samson as much. So that was something I thought of. But Kasai 8630, it rides like a dream. It's the nicest steel bike I've ever ridden. It is definitely nicer than my Samson. So paint, a lot of people think my bike is black. It is not black, it's purple. When I was a little boy, my favorite car was, or one of the favorite cars I had. I like Japanese cars, Japanese bikes, obviously. I like Nissan, the Nissan 350Z, and specifically the color. It was a purple color. The color is called Brickyard Red. It's not really red. It's not really purple. It's like a burgundy. But I thought it was like a sophisticated, cool, unique color. And it kind of looks dark and it kind of looks bright in the sunlight. So when you see it in the sunlight, it's obviously purple, but when it's dark, it looks like it is black. I put a little bit of sparkle on it. I went with the opposite with the Samson, obviously. I went very loud with that. And for the Samson, I chose another car paint as well. This isn't a video about the Samson, but the paint that goes into the Samson is a BMW M individual color. It's Monte Carlo blue. Obviously the Samson is covered in sparkles, but I wanted to keep the Calavinka kind of subdued and not as loud. I did have the logo. I chose a much larger logo than you normally see on Calavinkas, and I went with a rainbow holographic, I'm not really sure how you call it, logo, so that in the sun it'll change, you know, all the shades of the rainbow. And also you can see here I put my name on it. That's both my Samson and my Calavinka has my name on it in Japanese. I was told this actually is my name in Japanese, so there's that. So that's pretty good. That could have been bad, but I cross-referenced it several times with Japanese speakers, native Japanese speakers, and then actually one time when I was in Japan with this bike, I was in Tempura, a bike shop in Tokyo, and 2 bike messengers came in and they read my name off of the top tube, and I was like, oh, and they said it right, and I was like, it's actually correct. So it was nice because I moved back to America, and the whole process of buying the bike was pretty easy. It was a lot of back and forth, but just like reassuring, like, okay, is this what you want? It's gonna be this. Measure yourself again. There's a lot of back and forth, but it was still pretty easy. I said, like, I want this paint, I want this logo, I want this size tubing, I want this clearances. And it was pretty painless, and they shipped the bike back to Atlanta, where I was going to move after Thailand. And so it was nice. I arrived at the hotel and it was waiting for me. So I opened the bike and it's brand new in this picture, and you can see it's no dents or no scratches. It's brand new paint. So it's beautiful to have a brand new bike, and it's an incredible feeling. It rides better than any steel bike I've ever ridden, as I mentioned. And so that is placebo, I will say that. But it feels great to have your own custom bike. It feels nice to have something that you have forever. I think a lot of cyclists buy and sell bikes, and that's totally fine. I typically, the way that I am, I like to buy something for the longevity of it, something I really want, and just keep that one item for forever until if I don't want it anymore. But really, it's like, these have my name on it. I'll always have it. If I have a son who's the same exact height as me, then I would give it to him. But yeah, I think like this is a certain type of person who's going to get a custom bike. You don't need to get it, right? But yeah, if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in maybe having a custom bike. So I highly recommend getting a custom bike. I think NJS bikes are more difficult to get than if you were going to get like a Weiss or like a Stinner. And those are great bikes too. But actually, the NJS bikes are far cheaper than almost all American builders. In my opinion, the craftsmanship of the of the Japanese bikes is great. I think that, you know, companies like Weiss or Stinner or Vanilla make incredible bikes too. I just prefer the Japanese heritage and the prestige behind these bikes. And so, yeah, the price isn't as much as you think, so you should probably go on the website. No, I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it, but if you go on the website, that's how much it cost.